I've got two brilliant ladies. Good morning, ladies.
Good morning.
Aaron Bates.
How are you,
You're
Xoli?
visiting us again. This is the second time.
It is the second time.
Ah,
the second of
here
many.
More often.
We're working on it.
Good to have you.
Thank you.
Angie else? I'm not going to ask you where you've been. I'm just going to say good morning to you.
Morning.
You're part of this furniture, you know that.
No.
All right, ladies, let's start. Cape Times. Aaron Bates,
Yes.
you were at the state capture inquiry. The Cape Times, the main headline there, Hayne fingers state capture main culprits, and he says that foreign governments also played a part. But let's start with the main culprits who he says are responsible for aiding this looting project.
So he really highlights banks and consultancies. He called them corporate enablers of state capture. But of course, he also mentioned government. So it's really a trifecta, because certain policies around anti-money laundering and anti-corruption will then inform how banks operate in different states. He was highly critical of the United Arab Emirates, for example. Of course, the capital is Dubai, where the Guptas own property and are currently based. And then, of course, also Hong Kong. But he didn't give the British government an easy time either, really lambasting British companies and legislative frameworks that are perhaps there but not implemented correctly.
Yeah. I listened to much of his testimony, and he seemed to focus much on international banks, for example, HSBC, Standard Chartered. These are banks that I think are quite prominent in the UK. What about local banks?
Well, there are sometimes local links to some of these banks. So we heard about Standard Chartered, for example, providing a letter to the Commission based on information from its Johannesburg office and saying that they weren't privy to information at their Dubai office because they're two separate offices. Hayne critiques that and says, but if there's a pipeline of capital between Johannesburg and Dubai, how is it that there's no connection between the two in other ways when it comes to critical evidence? Indeed, he does. And he said the criminals and money launderers and, big-time kind of gangsters, really, although that's not the term that he used, are getting smarter by the day. And as digital technology and, online sort of cryptocurrency develops, people are becoming more and more savvy. And states and legislation and financial institutions need to be ahead of the criminals rather than behind them. Yeah. So you put a lot of onus on the likes of banks and corporate consultancies.
Just finally on Lord Peter Hayne's testimony at the state capture inquiry, Aaron, he does seem to berate the lackadaisical attitude on the part of the South African government for not pursuing the Guptas in terms of repatriating them from Dubai, because now we do have an extradition treaty that exists.
We do. So he was critical of the South African government in terms of taking action and saying, we can't wait for the report of the Commission to then go to the President and then go to Parliament and then be kind of, navel-gazed by a bunch of MPs while we all have a grand academic debate about it. This is urgent because, of course, the money that leaves the country and is laundered then gets spent. It might be spent on double-bill weddings in the Himalayas. It might be spent on jets. It might be spent on property. Who knows? But if it's not back in the country, it's not only lost to the state, but it's never recoverable. And so, yes, issues around extradition with the South African and UAE governments, also a lot of criticism of the Indian government, for example. Their assets of the Guptas in India, they paid for a temple in that country after making a fortune in South Africa through their various businesses. Why is there not more coordination internationally?
Yeah, very, very important. All right, Aaron Bates, let's park it there for the time being. Ange, the front page of the Cape Argus. Look, I'm not going to launch you here because this is actually a headache for all of us, I think. This strike, SAA strike, the main headline there calls for cool heads amid SAA strike, and the crippling airline could sound a death knell. Have you had to take a flight out of Johannesburg lately, and was it SAA by any chance?
I can quite confidently tell you I haven't flown SAA for quite a long time. I don't fly them because they're expensive, which fascinates me that they never make a profit. But they're expensive and unreliable, and frankly, I don't find the staff particularly nice and friendly.
Ouch. What about the tourism sector, Ange? Look, I mean, people coming to South Africa, that airline is our flag
absolutely.
Bearer, It's...
well, they're not flying the flag particularly proudly, are they?
Fly on when they come to South Africa.
I know, but you got to do it proudly. You got to do it loudly.
I mean, the other thing is I think that often people are getting connecting flights through SAA that they unwittingly book because you book from abroad. Perhaps you're in Kenya or Nigeria or maybe, you know, I don't know, somewhere in Europe, and you book through that airline and then they connect with South Africa to get you maybe from Johannesburg to Cape Town or to Durban. And so with the strike, there have been a lot of, you know, visitors to South Africa who've been stuck and kind of, you know, roped into the storm over wage increases in the national carrier when they had no idea that they were getting embroiled in that kind of mess. What I found interesting about the Cape Argus story is the figure they cite in terms of GDP, and this is broadly in terms of travel, air transport and tourism. 3.2% of GDP. They're citing a figure of supporting around 472,000 jobs, and it seems, you know, that this story is really focused on the knock-on effect of the strike, but saying that it is going to hit the tourism industry as we head into festive season if something isn't done urgently.
And that sector is already under pressure. Look, let's try and have a look at the brighter side. Is there anything particularly happy to speak about in sports?
I'm sure there is. I'm not focusing on that, though.
We're playing Scotland, though, right?
Sure, absolutely, yes. We'll probably play Scotland in the rugby next year, but I'm focusing on cricket, which sadly isn't, you know...
It's not good news.
We're not flying the flag particularly well on the cricketing front either. So we're just hearing from Dale Steyn, who's come out and, you know, just advised CSA to hang on to senior players who aren't necessarily playing anymore, but have got a lot to offer. I'm just going to say, Rassie Erasmus, he used to play. Then he was brought back into the fold. South African rugby was a shambles 2 years ago. We're now the World Cup champions. I'm just saying, put the right people in the right positions. If they've got the qualifications, if they've got the credentials, if they've earned their stripes, give them the position. Stop worrying about the other stuff. It's all I've got to say. Anyway, so Dale Steyn just said, and this obviously is in the wake of Graham Smith withdrawing his application.
Why did he withdraw that application?
He says he felt that he would not be given the level of freedom and support to initiate required changes. And quite frankly, change is certainly what we need in cricket South Africa at the moment. So the fact that he didn't feel like he'd be given the support to make those changes speaks to a very sad story in cricket South Africa at the moment, quite frankly. Makes me cross, because we've got very, very good cricketers in this country. We should also be world champions in world cricket.
Ladies, I'll have you know that we ranted this morning. Nothing positive, all negative. Listen, we have a new CEO of Eskom that's just been appointed. Isn't that something to rant about?
Well, I don't know. I think it might be a good thing because, you know, we're world champions and we'll probably smash them.
Okay,
so there's a silver lining.
You're not the right people to talk about this subject. The new CEO of Eskom. I'm actually going to talk to Chrissy.
Yes, you will. Oh, that was a cue. I was meant to pick it up. Sorry, this coffee isn't strong enough for me. But yes, of course, very important new CEO for Eskom. EFF is highly critical of it, and he's got his work cut out for him. I mean, in the intro, you speak about credibility. It's not about credibility. It's about power. We just need the power crunch to stop. So that's all I've got to say on that front.
Thank you very much. Should I invite you back here? I'm not sure. Angie Els.
I think you should, and you should give me stronger coffee too.
Angie, you are going to remain here with me. Thank you, ladies.